All right, everybody. Now it's truth moment. We've gone through every single method of food preservation. Now we're going to tell you how we feel about each one right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
I don't know if y'all heard the news, but we're a listener-supported show, and on Patreon, we're going to start doing a monthly giveaway where you get a one-on-one Zoom call with us as long as you're a patron. So come join us on Patreon, help support the show. Check out our links below for t-shirts and all of the camp products that we use. And specifically, there is a list on Amazon through our shop about products that we use for food preservation. So check those out and help support the Backyard Gardens podcast. Ding! All right, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to go through this whole list. So honestly, I'm going to start with the National Center for Home Food Preservation.
Wait, hold on.
And I'm going to read every single thing to you on it. Just kidding.
Yeah, you got into it too fast. This is the conclusion of our food preservation episode.
Yeah.
So, welcome.
We're running, we've got a lot to talk about in a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. So I personally found the history behind each one very interesting. I was very shocked about when food preservation started. Mm-hmm. And the one of them was drying. What do you like or not like about the drying method?
I don't like the out of sight, out of mind.
Okay. About
kind of the set it and forget it type drying, which is the easiest of all. Hang up your herbs or, put your peppers on a rack somewhere, just because of the way my mind works, and I really will forget it. And there's still some monitoring you need to do. I also, on the flip of it, love it because of the simplicity. Yeah,
it's funny as we record this episode, this is my biggest drying time of the year. Mm-hmm. And I just did a YouTube video about me drying some herbs and peppers and stuff like that. And it occurred to me that I don't dry year round, and I don't like the way, and for some of the foods, that it changes the taste or the texture of it. Mm. So that's one thing I don't like about drying. That being said, I have engaged interest, as I stated, about getting a dehydrator and improving on that a little bit. I see use for it. I want to be very cautious, you know what I mean? Because I don't know what people in my family are going to want to do or anything like that. But as we dive into more fruits and stuff like that, I can see making snacks and whatnot. It would be a very good method.
I do think that this is, and probably the most significant one, we're introducing you to consuming a thing in a different way. Yeah. And it definitely does taste different. But it also, I think, can introduce some kind of next level cooking and food preparation too.
Yeah, that is true. I think, you can embrace it. Look at sun-dried tomatoes. Totally different. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally different. And there's all kinds of recipes for that. And I do actually enjoy those. So there's that. Freezing. So where do you sit with freezing?
I think it's the OG for me when it comes to food preservation. I think that it probably requires the most organization to ensure that you're not being wasteful, because it's a great opportunity, kind of a great opportunity to be wasteful. And obviously there's the space thing for freezing. So, yeah. But I'm still a lover of freezing and a fan.
I like freezing and I don't like freezing. I live in a very power outage prone area, as much of the country is staring down the barrel of that as we speak, with the droughts and everything in the West. So I can envision it not being, of all of these methods, it's the most dependent on our current infrastructure to keep it safe to eat. So I don't like it because of that. But again, just like you kind of said, it can be, and also it can be as easy as hard as you want to make it.
Yeah.
If you want to freeze something that you're going to eat fairly shortly, then that's not a big deal. But if you want to freeze something for longer, then you've got to get the air out of it.
Yeah,
you've got to, you blanch it sometimes, stuff like that. So I don't know, man. I get real hung up on freezing. Like, I love it and I hate it at the same time. I have a real love-hate relationship with freezing.
Well, just as a note, it's the slowest to use, meaning you got to wait for that thing to thaw in a lot of cases before you use it. There's some dishes that things that can go directly from the freezer to a grill or to an oven. But most things you're waiting to thaw. So that actually falls into, again, that being a bit more organized.
Yeah.
And it's just, sometimes our freezers, whether it's sitting side by side next to a refrigerator or it's a deep freezer, sometimes they're black holes,
No, they definitely are. I mean, especially if you have a chest freezer like I have. Like we have to make a point to
get... freezer, that's what...
Oh, is that a deep freezer? I always think of a deep freezer as like an extra freezer you have.
Yeah. They're all the same. Both of those things are the same thing to me,
okay.
Whether that's really true or not.
So when I grew up, my parents, they got into some kind of club, and you got a freezer, and then they would send you like meats and vegetables and stuff like that. And so but it was like a regular stand-up freezer, but they always referred to it as a deep freezer. But either way, even though it was a normal stand-up freezer, it was still a black hole, man. You would find stuff in there, and I mean, I remember. My family still laughs about this. We had a power outage and we had turkeys in there and they rotted and we had to take them out. And my mom's like, take the turkeys out. We lived next to a parking lot and there was a dumpster and I had to carry these turkeys out. And I mean, dude, I was throwing up the whole time. It was the worst smell ever. So that was like my first foray into like, hey, this may not be as useful as we thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm adjusting my microphone here. My mic sounds nice.
Yeah, mine fell off when we started going, so that was always fun. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's the, for me personally, it's always the, what are you going to do with all of this food? And it's like, I'm going to use it, and I can't say for freezing, though, you can take a look at what you've frozen and decide if it's been in there too long. Not actually, but just from look at it, again, it's not as appetizing.
Or freezer burn or something like that.
Yep. Icicles everywhere.
Well, let's touch on fermenting then.
Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about fermenting, and my short answer...
She's high-talking us, everybody. Here we go. Strap in. Batavia's high-talking us. Here we go.
I didn't even realize I had gone there, but yep. So I think it's just still... Well, you don't remember the year, right? But I think it's still just so new. I just don't think there are enough recipes out there. I just think that, like... It's kind of this, this is good, but it's really not,
you gotta stomach
eating. It. Yeah, exactly, and so I feel like there's definitely something there. I personally, this is one of the ones I want to explore a little bit more, because I mean, I do think that there are benefits to fermenting, but I don't know if I'm really benefiting from it just yet.
For me, it's the only reason why I like it is because I can do something with my cabbage. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it's just like you said. You got to sometimes you just got to wolf it down. The taste can get real funky real fast. But I can't ignore the health benefits behind it. So there is that as well. And I mean, I'm not making yogurt and stuff like that. I mean, I'm talking about just vegetables. So there is that, and I do enjoy it, but at the same time, like I've had stuff go way wrong fermenting, and not to the point to where you get sick, but just to the point where you open and you're like, there ain't no way in hell I'm gonna eat this. Like, you couldn't pay me. So of all of these, that's the one that I can take or leave the most. But because of the cabbage use for it, and I mean, if I made wine, then that could be a different thing, but I don't make wine. So there is that as well. But for what I would use it for, it's real hit or miss for me. I'll continue making sauerkraut, but I don't know if I'm going to dive in too terribly much more.
I'm not sure if I'll make sauerkraut again, to be quite frank.
Really? What didn't you like about it?
It was flavorless. You know, like the pungency, you know, with the liquid. I get, yeah. And that's kind of funky. But the actual cabbage itself. And I think generally, you know, cabbage doesn't really have a lot of flavor, if any at all. It's everything you add to it. So it's very logical as to why it doesn't have a flavor. Yeah, I mean, and I'm talking about spoon or fork out of jar, right? Like I haven't put it on, you know, a hot dog or a sausage, which I think will add a little bit to it.
Yeah.
I do still, I'm a big fan of the jalapeno pepper sauce that I made, which is a fermenting process. So I go back to the idea of like, I just maybe need to explore a few more recipes. I really wish I could love a way to preserve my cabbage in this way.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big fan of cabbage, but this doesn't feel like
Try
it.
kimchi.
Yeah. I have to find out how to, like, you know, eighth that recipe.
So
I haven't.
Everybody, just so you know, I don't like cold food.
Okay.
And kimchi is typically, from what I understand, served cold. So that's why I don't do it. If I could eat it warmed up, which I mean, I know I could obviously warm it up, but that's just my thing. Like, I don't really like cold food that much.
I enjoy kimchi, but you know what it is? It's just a dab here and there.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you know. I'm not looking to consume, you know, it every day or weekly or enough for potentially me to make big batches. But I am always up for doing something, you know, once. But let's move on.
Well, let me ask you this then. Will you continue to dabble in the fermentation process?
I will.
Okay. Me too.
I think I'm going to use your method of trying a recipe each year, but specifically for fermenting.
Yeah. Until and I mean, at some point, you're going to get to a point like this, you know, I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's move on, you know.
And it's actually a cheat. It's I'm going to ferment something each year, and it just may be the one thing I like. I don't know. You know, like I'll try something new, but, you know.
So
if I keep on running into things that aren't good.
What about pickling?
Oh, you know I'm a fan. I'm going to crack the code with jalapenos.
Yeah.
I won't leave here before I do. You okay there?
No, my eye is itching like crazy. And people watching this video probably like, that dude's got messed up eye.
Yeah,
man, it just started itching. I think I got allergies. Yeah, for me, but yeah, pickling is the flavor change that gets me.
Well, it's supposed to, in a positive way. If I had never had pickled jalapenos before, I probably would enjoy pickled jalapenos now.
Yeah, see, I never ate really fresh jalapenos much. I always ate them pickled. Now, here's the deal. Homegrown jalapenos are like 50 times hotter than grocery store jalapenos.
That too,
So like when people are like, you can eat jalapenos, ain't nothing. Like, come over here and eat one of my jalapenos. Like I was doing that drying video I was referring to, and I picked up a green cayenne pepper, and my intent was to be like, see, it's not even that hot right now. And I bit it, and as soon as I bit it, I was like, shit, I messed up.
Regretted it.
Man, my mouth was sweating bad. But yeah, pickling for me, it's the flavor change. You know, I don't think I can get too deep into it because of the flavor changes.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going for the flavor change. It's not changing into the flavor that I want.
Yeah. Well,
bottom line, it's too vinegary so far. I mean, this is year over year for me.
Yeah. And you can find all kinds of recipes for pickling too. So there is that. Like, I have a feeling that for me, it's just like, hey, I didn't find what I wanted.
Yeah. So there's so many quick pickle recipes where you're just refrigerator pickles.
Yeah.
Meaning like whatever the dish is, you're pickling it in the refrigerator. And that's a really great way to, you know, all right, this recipe you have, don't go through the whole process of canning it, right? You know, use the canned recipe, but make a smaller batch and put it in the refrigerator to see if you like it. It hurt my soul to open up the first jar of jalapenos after that first year of canning them, and I'm just like, this ain't it. And I got jar after jar after jar of them. You know,
it's tough for me to sit here and listen to you talk bad about canned jalapenos. That's one of my favorite things to can. Okay. Or pickle, I guess, since we've discovered that water bath canning and pickling are very hand in hand.
Oh, don't go back there. Don't go.
I'm not. We're done with that. Okay. So, and I found also when we started getting into this, the history again behind this was interesting, how it was discovered and all that. It was surprising to me that
definitely one of the accidents, right?
Yeah. That's one of the accidents, it's like, shout out to my man or woman who was the first one to eat something like that. You know what I mean? Like, good for you. Curing. Mm-hmm. Where do you sit with that?
So I feel like I want to say curing was the thing that I didn't even understand before I got to the point of needing and wanting to grow certain crops like onions, like sweet potatoes. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing that was being done to those vegetables that I consume, often. Yeah. So I think that was probably, and not as a part of this series, but as I became the gardener that's growing those things. And I think I'm kind of enamored about like the beauty in the fruit or the vegetable, right? Like it still needs to go through this metamorphosis, to get to the point of, okay, now you can consume it in a way you like it. I mean, there's a certain, I know it's going to sound corny and that's okay, certain beauty to the art of curing. And it's easy in most cases, at least from my perspective.
I think I agree with you on all aspects. First of all, I 100% do not expect to stop curing anything. I mean, that's like a commonplace in my garden. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting to me, and it's always been interesting to me, how a sweet potato starts off one flavor and then ends with what we know. And it's a stark difference. And just through that process. Now, I know that when we went back and we read the definitions, talk about salting meat and stuff like that. But this is all part of the desiccation process, so it's not totally drying. There is still some moisture, but it's to lower levels to where it can sustain. And to me, I mean, it's like you said, it's so easy. It's once you do it a couple times, and the thing is you're not just going to do one sweet potato. You're going to do, at minimum, 5, 6, 7, 8 sweet potatoes. So, you're going to do it on a number of them. And it makes it so worth it because you can continue to come back throughout that year and eat that vegetable. Now, the problem I do have with it, and I don't really have a problem with it, but one issue is they don't cure for years, like when you're canning or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of like a poo-poo situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One thing to note, though, they are the things that require curing are some of the more low maintenance crops anyway. And there's something to be said about that. There's a certain level of balance that I want to try to achieve in my garden. Like everything can't be on all the time, so same thing when it comes to trying to preserve this. I mean, I don't want to be in the kitchen working up everything, right? So the curing process is, again, I think it creates that balance of you being able to grow these versatile plants, being able to preserve these versatile plants, and being able to kind of balance the workload. Yeah. That's huge for me.
Well, and I think it's cool too, because you're taking, it's just like you said, but when you cure, you brush off the dirt, you let it dry, you rotate it, you keep it warm, keep it dry, store it, and you're done. I mean, you don't have to wrap any string around it. I know there's people that braid garlic and hang it up and all that stuff, and that's fine and dandy if you want to do that. Yeah. You don't have to, though. Yep. I didn't do it. I just laid it out and walked away and came back, So yeah, I think it's a great method. Jams and jellies.
I'm a sweethead. I enjoy sweet things. However, I don't know if the return on investment is there. And it could be, if I'm really transparent, it could be I'm growing so few things that I can actually make jams and jellies with. We already covered off on, you don't have to grow it to make it. I like a dab of a sweet treat. I get it, but I kind of feel like, I could go to a farmer's market and pick up some, locally grown jam that I'm going to it's probably going to go bad in the refrigerator before I use all of it, to be quite frank.
Yeah. I disagree.
I know it's your jam.
Well, that was terrible. I felt something in my throat when you said that.
I wanted to pull it back, but I was already out there with it. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's one of those things. Once you start doing it, you start to find uses for it. The more you have, and I think that's the real benefit with this. Is it's taking a fruit and then you're using it in more ways than one. And I mean, look, there's way more out there than peanut butter and jelly. Like we eat yogurt, we add jelly to, so we buy vanilla yogurt and then we add our flavoring to it. We use it in baking. I went through everything before, and I think it's cool because if you're conscious about what you're putting in your body. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you ever read like ingredients labels and it's got like all these things you can't mention, this doesn't have that.
Yeah.
This has sugar, fruit, pectin, and that's it. It doesn't have all that other stuff in it. So when it comes down to that, I think it's a very powerful method, because typically jams and jellies in the health world are frowned upon more. But now we can adjust it, make it less sweet, more sweet, whatever you want. And not only that, but you can really experiment. Like, hot pepper jelly is legit on some cornbread. Like, if you've never had it, have you ever had it?
I've not had, I've had cornbread. I know I've had cornbread.
Yeah. But have you had hot pepper jelly on it?
No, I haven't. I have some too. Some hot pepper jelly.
Do it. That is.
How much longer are we on this episode?
That is the only way to eat it right there.
So I firmly, mark my words, I firmly believe that once I get into a space and I have fruit trees and I'm growing more fruit, my opinion is going to change.
Yeah. Because that's okay. You're going to have to find a way to use that stuff in multiple ways. Which brings me to canning.
Go ahead.
I love it. I don't think there's much to talk about that. I think there is downsides to it, and I think that's what needs to be brought up in these last few minutes. For me, it's complex. We can sit here until we're blue in the face and say, oh yeah, it's easy, you just got to follow the directions, but let's be honest, it's complex. There's a level of risk to it. Not that there's not risk to everything else, but to this there's more of a level of risk, and I think it comes with an overconfidence that you can have because you're using an actual tool. But water bathing, I do, but I don't do much because it's too limiting for me. Once I started using a pressure canner, I found myself not really. I use my water bath pot all the time to sterilize my jars, but then after that, like, I don't really use it that much, so I don't particularly care for that. But at the same time, I water bath every year. Something is getting water bathed every year. If it's not my jams, it's my peppers. I can do my tomatoes, and that really taps me out on what I would water bath. But I always have that option to fall back on. And that's important too, because this is the biggest part of our, it's like I said, this is my drying month. I usually dry in the month of September, late August through September. But I can also be canning at the same time. And the fact that it's longer food preservation, I think makes it a powerful tool.
Yeah, I actually, for the sake of time, let's move on to pressure canning, because my comments actually across both of those. Okay. So for pressure canning, you want to lead us out?
I just did. I thought.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I thought you were just talking about water bath canning a minute ago. I think if there was another method that created the shelf life that canning, water bath, or pressure canning does, then I'd be on that. It's definitely a ritual, right? Set aside an afternoon, right? Set aside a few hours. That's the way that I do it. It's the most expensive and it's the most labor intensive. Yeah. Sure, you can reuse your jars, right? Sure, you can reuse your rings. Sure, in most cases, you'll probably have 1 or 2, maybe 3 canners in your lifetime, and that's probably because you're upgrading, but it's the most labor intensive. It's a great investment. Right. So I am absolutely a fan of it. I think it allows you to become creative with your garden harvest. I think it allows you to introduce growing different things, because now you have a path as far as how to preserve it and then eat it later. For any sizable garden, and whatever that means to you. it's very hard unless you have a large family to eat all of that food fresh.
Yeah.
Right. So you absolutely have to have a way to preserve it. And water bath and pressure canning is such a great way.
It is a great way, and it's easy to can a bunch at once. It's made to do multiple jars. I mean, imagine if you got a pressure canner, you can only put one jar in it. You would never do it. But doing multiple quarts or pints or whatever in there, it makes it so it's a lot better. So there is a ritual to it, but I enjoy the ritual. I enjoy, like when I say, hey, I'm going to go can, I enjoy going in there, doing this process because I get efficient at it and I have multiple things going on at once. And then and then that gratification at the end that I'm done with it. That's what I enjoy the most. Behind coming in at a later date and using my produce in a different way. So, and I like the way you said that it was your creativity in your garden. I like that. So, of all of these, what's your number one?
Canning.
Canning?
I'm not going to choose between the two of them.
No. So, which one of these came up, though, a notch from learning about it as we went through? Damn, and there you go, people. Same for me. You heard it first right here in the Backyard Gardens podcast. Who would have thought that Batavia and I would have thought the same thing? Ever. So look, you can support us in all the ways you know how. Come see us on Patreon and come see us on YouTube. We're right here, Backyard Gardens podcast, baby. And until next time.
Ding! See ya.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
If you guys want some Backyard Gardens gear,
go to the link below and check out our t-shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and other gear.
All purchases go towards helping to support the show, so thank you so much in advance, and we hope you enjoy. We want everybody to have a garden, and we're going to give you a chance to win free seeds every month.
Head over to backyardgardenstv.com and enter your email address to be entered in all of our giveaways.
Good luck.
We want you to be a part of our gardening community. DM us a picture of your garden at Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and we will share it with our listeners.